Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, and this weekend we saw the beginning of the Journey Together pre-releases, and that means we've got the Journey Together FAQ to have a chat about today. Important new rulings you need to know from the new set, and as I tell you every time, if you're going to play the game, you need to know the rules. Shout out as always to lovely folks over at PokeGym. They are the ones who did publish this FAQ, and yes, it is published on PokeGym.net, not on Pokemon.com, but it is the official FAQ. This is what you need to know. Sound like a plan? Excellent. So starting off then, we've got a ruling for Dubwool, or should I say, Hops Dubwool, and its ability, Defiant Horn. This, of course, is that ability whereby when you evolve into it, you can switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active. Who chooses which Pokemon gets brought up? Well, the person playing Hops Dubwool. This is classic gusting. It's a kind of thing we've seen many, many times before, and that's where we are here. You get to choose, and that's what makes it such a good gosh darned ability. Now we got ourselves a new Maractus coming in here, and yes, it's got a lovely artwork rare, illustration rare. By the way, we don't have full English scans yet, so some of these I will need to use the Japanese scans. I apologise. But we have an ability, Exploding Needles here, whereby if it's active and gets knocked out by damage from an attack, you put 6 damage counters on the attacker. Well, what if we use the attack of Lily's Comfey, the Fade Out attack? That's the one where when you attack, it goes back into your hand. Well, what happens? Well, the answer is Lily's Comfey goes to the hand first, then Exploding Needles gets triggered, but there's no valid target. If you were playing way back in the day, you may remember the Uxie. I say way back in the day, does not feel that long ago for me, but there was a Uxie that saw a redonkulous amount of play, which had a similar attack, and this was used to get round these kind of abilities, because Pokemon goes away, and then there's no valid target for any ability like this. Speaking of fun abilities and Lily's Pokemon, how about Lily's Clefairy? Because this has got the ability Fairy Zone, whereby it makes Dragon Pokemon weak to Fairy. It's just a really good ability. And the question here is, does it give a weakness to Dragon Pokemon that don't currently have a weakness? Which is basically all Dragon Pokemon. Yeah, of course it does. Doesn't matter if they have a weakness, what weakness it is, none of that is relevant. The only thing that's relevant is when Lily's Clefairy is out, the Dragon Pokemon have a Dragon weakness. Now, Kilowattrel is one of the pre-release promos in the set, also has a phenomenal illustration rare, but it's also got the phenomenal ability Flashing Draw. You discard a lightning energy from this Pokemon, and then once during your turn, you can draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Can I use this if I have no cards in my deck? No. You can only use this if you can draw cards. So if there's no cards in your deck, you can't draw cards, this ability doesn't work. If you already have 6 or more cards in your hand, then you can't draw cards. This ability doesn't work. This ability only works if you can draw cards. You don't need to be able to draw 6 cards, but you need to be able to draw some cards. Speaking of pre-release promos, we've also got Lily's Rabombi with the ability Inviting Wink. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may have your opponent reveal their hand and put any number of basic Pokemon you find there onto your bench. Okay. Well, what if my opponent's bench is full? Can I use this if my opponent's bench is full? No. You absolutely cannot. By the way, wonderful illustration rare here as well, though we don't have an English scan yet. No. Then the reason is the bench is public knowledge. So everybody knows that the bench is full, so everybody knows you can't use this ability. What if I use this ability to put Pokemon onto my opponent's bench? Can they then evolve on their next turn? Yes. The way I always state it is, If the Pokemon is already there at the beginning of the turn, you can evolve it during the turn. Some people phrase it like it has to be down for a turn, but that gets really confusing with things like TM Evolution, which evolve right at the end of your turn during an attack, because those cards haven't been down for a turn, they got there right as the attack happened. But the best way to think about it is, if the Pokemon was on the board when your turn began, you can evolve that Pokemon during your turn. So if your opponent used Lily's Rabombi to bench one of your Pokemon during their turn, then it is on the bench at the beginning of your turn, and hence it can evolve up. If I use Lily's Rabombi's Inviting Wing ability, and my opponent has no basic Pokemon in their hand that I don't want to put into play, do I have to bench a Pokemon if they've got at least one target? No. You have to choose some Pokemon, but you can put any number of basic Pokemon, and that can be 0. You can choose 0 Pokemon, and away we go. Now there is a new Magmortar coming in this set, and Magmortar's got the ability Magma Surge, and that's an ability whereby you can put 3 more damage counters on burned Pokemon during Pokemon Checkup. Well, how does this work? Do I put 3 damage counters on? What happens if I've got more than one Magmortar? And the answer is, each Magmortar places an extra 3 damage counters, and there's nothing in the wording of the ability to say that it won't stack. So if you've got one Magmortar down, you get the 2 regular damage counters for burn, plus 3 more, 5 in total. If you've got 2 Magmortar down, you get the 2 that you would normally get, plus an extra 3 for one Magmortar, plus an extra 3 for the other Magmortar to make 8 in total, and so on. Now, Toadschool comes through with an ability here, Secret Forest Path. This is actually one of the Pokemon that came around in the Generations decks, if anybody's wondering. And if this Pokemon is on the bench, then your active Pokemon has their retreat cost lowered by 2 energy. Well, how does this work with Grimmsnarl's Shadowy Knot attack? This is an attack whereby it does 50 damage for every energy cost in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat. Well, yeah. You just look at their retreat, take away 2, times it by 50. Simple. If they've got a retreat cost of 3, their retreat cost becomes 1, Grimmsnarl does 50 damage. If they've got a retreat cost of 2, then Grimmsnarl does no damage because they actually end up with no retreat. There we go. Simple as that. And then finally, in terms of abilities at least, we've got some attack ones to look at as well. We've got Zoroark, one of the coolest abilities ever trade. Discard a card from your hand, draw 2 cards. Let's face it, we've seen this kind of ability before. Well, what if I've got no cards in my deck? But I really want to discard a card. Let's say I want to discard something, so, an energy, so I can accelerate it with End's PP up. But I need an energy in the discard, they're all in my hand, so I want to discard an energy from my hand to accelerate it with End's PP up. Can I do that? No! You can't use trade if there aren't any cards left in your deck. Discarding a card from your hand is a cost to use the ability. Drawing cards is the effect, but we know you can't use an ability for no effect, so it doesn't work. Now there is a Bombardier coming in this set, moving over to attacks here. And we've got the attack Dropshot, and what that one does is discard all energy from this Pokemon, and then you choose one of your opponent's Pokemon and deal 120 damage to it. If I accidentally discard a Pokemon to which I cannot do damage, let's say a Terra Pokemon, then remember all immune to bench damage, do I still have to discard the energy? Yep. Essentially, you discard the energy, do the attack, the Terra Pokemon is protected from the damage by its whole Terra thing, and then nothing happens. You've wasted all of your energy. Might I suggest not doing this? That's my advice. Now, Darmanitan has the wonderfully named Flame Body Cannon. And yes, this is another one of the pre-release promos. And Flame Body Cannon here says you discard all energy from this Pokemon, and it does 90 damage to one of your opponent's bench in addition to the 90 to the active. Well, if my opponent has no bench Pokemon, do I still need to discard all the energy from Enstar Manatan? Yes, obviously. Although I love the fact that this was thought about. Yeah, you discard the energy, you do the attack, and it does 90-90. If there's nowhere to put the second 90, you still go. The reason this comes up, of course, is because it does 90, and then it reads discard all energy to do 90 to the bench. So the argument here is, if I'm not hitting the bench, I shouldn't have to discard the energy. It should just be free for 90. Not how it works. You discard the energy regardless. Now, Volcanion has a new EX in the set, and it's got the really rather nice attack, Scorching Cyclone. And that says you do 160 damage for free energy, and you attach an energy from this Pokemon to one of your bench Pokemon. What happens if I have no bench Pokemon? What happens to the energy? Nothing. You do the damage, you go to move the energy cannot move because there's nowhere to move it to. Not a dramatic pause, that's just the way it works. If there's nothing to move the energy to, then you don't move the energy, you just move on with your life, frankly. Yay! Now, Ino's Voltorb has got the rather lovely attack, Voltaic Chain. Very nice attack, actually better than the Electrode. For 2 energy, you do 20 damage, plus an extra 20 damage for each energy on each, or lightning energy, on each of your Iono's Pokemon. Okay. Well, if one of my Iono's Pokemon has a Luminous energy attached, do I get to do the extra 20 damage? Yeah. Because it doesn't say basic lightning energy. It says every lightning energy attached. And when Luminous energy is attached to one of your Iono's Pokemon, it's all types of energy, and that will, of course, include lightning energy. So yes, totally counts. Now, there's a new supporter card in the set, Ruffian, lets you choose one of your opponent's Pokemon to discard both a Pokemon tool and a special energy. Well, can I choose a tool from one of my opponent's Pokemon and a special energy from another? Nope. Because the card says choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, discard a tool and a special energy from that Pokemon. So no, unfortunately you cannot choose separate Pokemon. It would actually be a way better card if you could, but you can't. And yes, this is the kind of thing, it's one of those rulings where it's a bit sad, and you do need to know the ruling. It's just annoying that it doesn't work the way you want it to, but it definitely doesn't. So finishing off with Spiky Energy then, it's another one of those energies whereby when it's attached to your Pokemon and your opponent gets hurt by damage from an attack, you take 2 damage counters on it. Well, if my active Pokemon's got 2 Spiky Energy and it gets damaged, how many damage counters does the attacking Pokemon take? 4. There's nothing to say that the effect of Spiky Energy doesn't stack, and therefore the effect of Spiky Energy absolutely does stack, and that means that you get to do 4 damage counters, which makes it kind of fun. So yay. And there we go. That's what you need to know, ladies and gentlemen. So now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these rulings make sense. Tell me if any surprise you. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Get us. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @LeWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely Uncle Poker Peter, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.